These are the skiers who've dominated the early season on the Budweiser Mogul Tour. Bradley Holmes, a win and a second place have put him atop the tour standings. Veteran Mike Rawls, a surprise winner in the last event in Breckenridge, Colorado. They'll be challenged by the likes of former champs Cameron Boyle, Dave Hill, and many more as the Bud Mogul Tour comes to New England. Welcome to Sunday River, Maine, and stop number 3 of the 1993 Budweiser Mogul Tour. Hello once again, everyone. I'm Tim Singer here at Sunday River. Each year they host the annual Legends of Freestyle Skiing competition, so it's only fitting that for this event I'm joined by a true legend in this sport, Duffy Wilson. Duffy, we look around and we see a lot of bare mountains here in New England, yet we look right back and there's a fine white blanket of snow.
Well, the conditions are great here in Sunday River. Tim, you know, I'm from Colorado. Everybody in the East says Colorado is so beautiful. Those of us from the West, we come east and we think it's great here. Beautiful trees in the hills and great skiing in Sunday River.
Well, as they say, the grass is always greener or the snow is always whiter on the other side of the fence here at Sunday River. That comes thanks to a snowmaking system which is rated #1 in the nation. Well, enough of this beauty talk. Let's talk about the competition. We had a quick look at Bradley Holmes and Mike Rawls at the outset. How do they and the rest of the other skiers figure to do on this course?
Well, they figure to go flying through the air as far as I can see. On the tour, we call this an air show, and it should be an air show. We should see some of the best jumping that we've seen on the tour. And when I mean jumping, I'm looking for triples, especially down here on the bottom, Tim. Competitors going up, not one trick, not two tricks, but 3 well-executed flying tricks through the air. Should be big air show.
Well, that brings us to our course profile brought to you by Dynastar.
Well, the course is short and sweet. We're talking about 640 feet long with a vertical drop of about 150 feet. The snow is very firm and the jumps are very big.
All right, Duffy, and it's time now for the viewers to have their own look down this course with our Dynastar Vertical Assault. The camera this time strapped on local competitor Todd Deemer.
Oh yeah!
Budweiser Mogul Tour is brought to you by Head & Shoulders and Ford Trucks. Ford Trucks, the best never rests.
Welcome back to ESPN's coverage of the Budweiser Mogul Tour from Sunday River, Maine. We're just about set for the quarterfinals, but right now let's take a look at some of the early round action. In the round of 32, Bobby Aldegari, the former Olympian, was upset by Brad Jesse. Aldegari getting the nod from 4 out of the 5 judges, but losing 5-0 from the speed judge. Also in the round of 32, Scott Harrington, last year's World Championship bronze medalist, made his debut this season by topping Mike Rawls. Rawls a winner in the last tour event in Breckenridge, Colorado. This is Dave Hill, the defending overall tour champion, topping Shane McConkey as McConkey barrels over the fence en route to his disqualification. Last year here in Sunday River, Cameron Boyle was on a roll, winning his 6th straight tour event title with this amazing jump on the second air. But here in Sunday River, Maine, in the round of 16, Cameron Boyle loses his ski early and is eliminated by Bob Dickey. It has been a rough season for Cameron Boyle. If you go back over the past few years, he has been a fixture in the quarterfinals or above, but Cameron has been struggling to stay in the top 10 in this year's tour standings. Meantime, the top 2 seeds, Bradley Holmes and Scott Hall, breezed into the quarterfinals, setting up a quarterfinal bracket that looks like this. Holmes will take on Chuck Martin. It will be Pete Moline against Peter Ayers. Scott Harrington takes on Bob Dickey, and Hill will face off against Hall. And the quarterfinals begin on the left course. It's Bradley Holmes, nothing short of the best skier on the tour this year. On the right course, his opponent, Chuck Martin, nothing short of the most promising skier on the tour this year.
Chuck Martin could be number 1, but Bad Rad Bumpin' Brad is number 1. He's the head and shoulders above the rest. Bib wear right now, the number 1 skier on the tour on the blue course.
Bradley Holmes, a win in Telluride at the first event, runner-up in Breckenridge in the last event when he had to pull out of the championship with a knee injury. We will watch closely to see how it responds as they come out of the gate and head towards the important first jump.
Even start, Chuck Martin got out of the gate first. Nice double on the top as they make their way to that bottom air. Martin with the lead right now. Bradley Holmes coming into it. Big triple airs for both competitors, and Chuck Martin has a lot of trouble. He is off the course.
Martin loses control after the second jump. Bradley Holmes with smooth skiing throughout, despite the fact he falls down at the bottom. It is Bradley Holmes by a 3-2 score by all 5 judges, 15-10. He advances into the semifinals. And while the spectators, not to mention the announcers, brave the chill here in Maine, the athletes have the nice warmth of the Valio tent, the competitors' tent up at the start. More importantly, up at the start right now on the left course, 20-year-old Peter Ayers of Montreal, Canada. He's facing Pete Megadeth Moline on the right side.
Ayers eliminated Margot in the last round, so he's representing Canada, and Moline just represents a wild man on the hill. Great air.
A nice tip drop spread by Pete Moline with that air up top. Moline an enigma on this tour. Finished 4th in the World Championships, 2nd in an event last year, but often doesn't crack the top 16, but he's showing he wants to do it here.
A great triple. Ayers has problems. It should be Moline.
Well, Moline, who, correcting myself, has already cracked the top 16, is looking to get into the final 4. And on the red course, Pete Moline of Phelps, Wisconsin, has advanced into the semifinals.
I'm watching Pete Moline here on this bottom air, and I see him taking this bottom air, but not really committing to it. He's trying to sneak one in on us here. Look as he takes off. There's the spread. Now, look at that little twister. That's a quarter twister and to the spread. So that's not really a triple. That's a 2 1/4 against a better competitor. Pete would not have gotten away with this.
We've got more quarterfinal action upcoming. You'd think after a day on the slopes, these skiers would be ready to just kick back and take it easy, but that's not the case with some of the competitors on the Budweiser Mogul Tour who we caught up to last night, trying to practice their twists and turns on the Nordic sport downhill. Stay with us. Tim Singer and Duffy Wilson back here in Sunday River, Maine. We're midway through the quarterfinals of this Bud Mogul Tour event. Duffy, during the past few shows, we've talked about the all-important judging. We've focused in on the turns and the aerials. This time, let's talk some speed.
Well, we know that the turns are the most points available to a competitor, but it seems like everybody wants that speed judge. He has 5 points to give. 3-2 if it's under 1.49 seconds difference. If it's between 1.49 and 2.99, it can be a 4-1 score. If you're 3 seconds or more slower than the other competitor, it's a 5-0 score. Everybody wants that speed. These guys are pros. They love to go fast.
And the quarterfinals continue on the left course. Bob Dickey out of Steamboat Springs, Colorado. He's facing, welcome back to the tour, Scott Harrington, making his first appearance in this 1993 season. The bronze medalist in last year's World Championships, but Dickey having a hot tournament here in Sunday River.
Well, his nickname is Double Trick, and he's pulled that on 2 champs. He eliminated Koff and Cameron Boyle.
Well, Harrington out of the gate first as they approach the top jump. Harrington with the spread, twister spread behind him, Bob Dickey.
Harrington skiing very well, and a nicely extended jump. As I said, big air. Let's watch this lower air, Tim.
The Skyman known for helicopters. He doesn't utilize it there, but Dickey behind him, both with great second jumps. Harrington across the line first. The judges will have a tough call when considering those turns, speed, and air. And on the red course, by virtue of that speed advantage we talked about moments ago, it is Scott Harrington advancing into the semifinals.
Dickey did nothing wrong. He had a very solid run and great air at the bottom. But Harrington put on a better show. He's higher off the bottom air, and he's faster to the finish line.
And the quarterfinals conclude with this duel on the right course. It is Scott Hall, a runner-up in Telluride, Colorado. He's facing Dave Hilb on the left course. Hilb is the defending tour champion, has struggled a bit this season, and earlier in the season he talked about the pressures of trying to defend that title.
Consistency pays off, and you gotta be skiing your best race after race, day after day. And I just found, by putting everything together, not necessarily being the biggest or the fastest, or you have to put it all together and be the best.
Red course ready, blue course ready, race is ready.
Scott Hall on the right, the runner-up at the first event this year in Telluride. Both take the jump simultaneously.
Nice landing by Hilb. Great air, just like we said in Sunday River. These guys are flying.
Dave Hilb on your left, the defending tour champ, a true professional athlete, a mountain biker, rock climber. They cross the finish line together, Dave Hilb and Scott Hall, both skiing nearly identical runs. And on the red course, the troubles for Hilb continue as Scott Hall advances into the semifinals.
Dave Hilb, last year's tour champion, skiing very well in the middle section of the course. But we see him here off the lower air. A nice trick, although his hands did seem to get a little crazy. He puts it down in that same trough that we've seen other competitors have a problem with. Boom, he's into that wall of that bump right there, and he's in the back seat. That cost him the run.
So the semifinals are set here in Sunday River as Bradley Holmes makes his Final Four appearance for the 3rd time in as many events. He'll take on Pete Moline, while Scott Skyman Harrington will face Scott Hall. We've got that coming up in a moment, but right now let's take a look around this Sunday River Resort with our Dina Star team led by Bradley Holmes and Justin Patno. Welcome back to Sunday River, Maine, the semifinals of the Bud Mogul Tour. You're looking at not a competitor, but lovely Gail Moline, the wife of one of our semifinalists on the left course, Pete Megadeth Moline. He'll be taking on, and it's a tough challenge, Bradley Holmes, the #1 seed on this tour.
Well, pretty soon we're going to have to start saying that why is Pete Moline here, because he's getting into these finals. He skied well. Bradley Holmes, the favorite.
Pete Moline, soon to be a dad, we might add, but concentrating now on the top jump as he and Holmes are battling head-to-head.
Even Moline with big air. Great extension by Moline, way up there.
Bradley Holmes coming back from the knee injury with a second place, slips a little ahead of the top jump, takes that second jump with a triple twister. Bumping a little on the left is Pete Moline. They cross the finish line nearly together. And the success continues for Bradley Holmes, as for third time in as many competitions this year, he advances into the championship round with the win over Pete Moline.
If only Pete Moline had had a rear view mirror. Had he checked in the rear view, he would have seen this. Look at Bradley Holmes having trouble above the lower air. But Pete didn't know that. He goes into the lower air, he goes too high, he's not comfortable up there, and when he comes down, it's a bad landing and a bad finish. He didn't know, or he could have saved this run and advanced over Bradley Holmes.
And Holmes is set to face the winner of this semifinal. Great Scott, who will it be? On the left course, Scott Skyman Harrington out of Haverhill, New Hampshire. He's facing Scott Hall on the right course. Hall, a runner-up at the first event in Telluride, but Harrington, in his first event of the season, proved that you don't need some preseason training.
Harrington also an Eastern skier, Hall a Western skier. We'll see if there is an advantage to Harrington on the left course, that he's used to these conditions.
Harrington, a winner in 1989 at an event in Killington. That's where the tour will be next, and they're out of the gate. Look for a possible helicopter. You don't see it up top, but you do see some good jumps.
Nice air, two nice doubles by both competitors as they move to the bottom jump.
Taking that jump first is Scott Hall with the triple. He gets some great air. He has that speed advantage by a decided margin, finishing ahead of Harrington. His fate is in the hands of the judges. On the red course, Scott Hall tops Scott Harrington. He will advance to the championship here at the Bud Mogul Tour of Sunday River, Maine.
Timmy, this is a pleasure to watch, and I'm telling you what, Scott Hall is a skier to watch. Look at this landing on the top air. A very well-executed double, and it's like he never left the ground. He touches down, and he's back into his turns. Great turns in the middle section of the course, and here he goes again. A great triple maneuver, and boom, he is flying. His feet are on the ground. He's back into his turns. It doesn't get a lot better than that.
So the championship bracket shapes up as a rematch of this year's first title duel in Telluride, Colorado, as Bradley Holmes will face Scott Hall. That's coming up in a moment, but first this programming note. ESPN's top-rated skiing program, the Budweiser Mogul Tour, will be changing times, coming to you next from Killington, Vermont, on Wednesday morning, the 27th of January at 1:30 a.m. Set your VCRs if you're not a hardcore ski viewer. For you folks on the West Coast, it's prime time Tuesday night, the 26th at 10:30 p.m. But we've got more from Sunday River coming up right after this. Welcome back to Sunday River, Maine. We've got the championship of this Budweiser Mogul Tour upcoming in a moment. You know, the dual format on this tour is in stark contrast to the singles style of mogul skiing on the World Cup. Now, we talked to several of the skiers who jumped from the World Cup to the pro ranks about the major differences.
Well, the biggest change was pretty much the dual format. You do it on the World Cup circuit, but it's not quite so often. So it took me a while to get used to it, and now I think I have it pretty down, and I'm ready to go for today.
I think singles is a little bit cleaner. You're coming down the hill, and you're a little less speed, a little less concerned about speed, more concerned about cleanliness, and cleanliness with the jumps and landing the jumps clean.
So some major differences between the two styles, and Duffy in the championship, Scott Hall and Bradley Holmes, two former World Cup skiers that have adapted to this duel format. They met a few weeks ago in the championship at Telluride, an interesting duel.
Well, it was an interesting duel in that as they were coming down the course, Scott had Bradley taken care of, skiing very well. Bradley had had problems, and then when we got to the finish line, Scott got to the finish line basically on his chest. A huge crash off the bottom air, and sliding through the finish, Bradley Holmes with a gift for his first win.
Well, we'll see what happens, that championship duel. Scott Hall and Bradley Holmes upcoming in a moment, but right now, let's go to the top of the hill for the consolation duel for third place. This is a rematch of the consolation duel at the World Championships last April in Snowbird, Utah. Pete Moline on the left course. He is facing on the right Scott Harrington. Harrington won that consolation duel and is skiing well again here in Sunday River.
Big question is, can Pete ski within himself, you know, take this run all the way to the finish? Harrington's going to give him all he wants.
Duffy referring to the problems Moline had at the bottom in his last duel as they approach the top jump. The single spread by Moline.
Nice triple, though, by Harrington in the middle section of the course, and great turns. Harrington coming down now to the second jump. And a little tough. Moline having problems off that jump again. Harrington and Moline are neck and neck at the finish.
They take it to the finish together. The judges have the call on this very tight duel.
Get a whole lot tighter than that.
On the red course, Scott Harrington, in his first event back this season, has medaled with a third place finish in Sunday River. This is for the championship of the Budweiser Mogul Tour's first Eastern swing at Sunday River, Maine. On the left course, Bradley Holmes, a 7-time World Cup freestyle team member. He'll be facing Scott Hall. He's from Breckenridge, Colorado. The top 2 seeds currently on the tour, the top 2 most consistent skiers this year.
And Bradley Holmes is number 1. He's got that head and shoulders bib on. Even if he loses here, he's still number 1 on the tour.
He will retain the number 1 seeding, but Hall very much would like to avenge his loss in the championship at Telluride a few weeks back. They are out of the gate, approaching the first jump, both looking very clean with the air and the turns.
Hall, a great triple, and he really pushed out of the start. Here comes Bradley Holmes. Look at those turns.
Again, Hall had Holmes to the finish. Both had great air in Telluride. Hall does not make the mistake this time. He crosses the finish line first, snow blowing and the crowd anticipating a championship call by the judges. And on the red course, vengeance for Scott Hall as he tops Bradley Holmes, winning his first ever title on the Budweiser Mogul Tour.
This is almost a carbon copy of Telluride. Scott Hall with a great upper section of the course. He's got this race won again, and here he comes to the second jump. Up he goes, and is he going to crash? We know he doesn't, but what he does do is he loses that air judge 4-1. He wins everything else, and he is the champion in Sunday River, barely.
So the results are official as you see them here in Sunday River, Maine. Scott Hall takes the title ahead of Bradley Holmes, who finishes second for the second time to go along with 1 victory this season. Scott Harrington ends up in third. He's followed by Pete Moline, while Bob Dickey leads off the back 4. The man of the hour is Scott Hall. Duffy Wilson, he takes his first ever title on this tour.
All right, congratulations, Scott Hall.
Thanks, Duff.
Your first title here. And, you know, we talked about Telluride. You slid across the finish, didn't win there, and you won here very tight. It was 13-12 for you.
Yeah, I definitely hate to make that call there, but, you know, Bradley's a hot skier. We're just putting it on the line. You know, we got to the top, and Bradley asked me what course I wanted, and I said, I'll take the red. He goes, right on, we'll take the blue, you know. So we were both familiar with it, and I know we were riding high in that one.
It's got to feel good to finally break into the winner's circle.
Yeah, I've been pushing it for a while, and I finally broke through. You know, this is actually my first career win, I believe. Skiing as an amateur, I was second, fourth, fifth, all the above, but never number 1.
Scott Hall is number 1, his first win here in Sunday River.
Thanks, Duffy. As we check out our head and shoulders above the rest current tour point standings, we see that despite the loss, Bradley Holmes still maintains his edge by 5 points ahead of Scott Hall. Mike Rawls is in third place, then Chris Carson, and a 4-way tie for 5th place, Gary Margit, Cameron Boyle, Dave Hild, and Chuck Martin. That's the way the standings will stay until the tour meets again in Killington, Vermont. We hope you'll join us for that program. Until then, for Duffy Wilson and all of us here at ESPN, I'm Tim Singer. Thanks for joining us.
Bud Mogul Tour staff and crew provided by Mountain Goat for people who know where they're going and why.